Dear colleagues, thank you for having the opportunity to give a talk at the Fest Colloquium on the occasion of Adrian Berger's 80th birthday. I will here give a survey, of course, on modeling, but also will explain how the pitfalls and the bad development in computer science can be properly repaired. I devote this talk, or dedicate this talk, to Egon Berger. I'm very, very much thanking him for his collaboration, his patience, his wisdom. As an example, we developed with him 20 years ago, that's a long time, an BPMN specification that is complete, that is robust, and that is semantically well-founded. And this was the only one that is currently available for BPMN 1.0, later for 1.1. Later we showed also that our specification is completely working for 2.0 and 2.0.2. The problem was, however, that this approach was a little bit away from the common belief that Petri nets are the proper foundation for any dynamical process. For this reason, computer science theoreticians didn't like it, and practitioners didn't like it either, because they don't want to have a long semantical explanation, or they don't want to have even a proper foundation. The most important thing is that they draw somehow wild diagrams. The approach we could develop with Egon Berger was, however, also providing a basis for a normal form theory for BPMN diagrams. We call them well-formed diagrams. These well-formed diagrams are somehow developed on the basis of our approach, and for this reason I thank Egon for his contributions. Let me first start with a little observation. Computer science is also based on 3 or maybe 4 paradigms, like structure-oriented mathematics. In the Bourbaki approach, we realize that mathematics can be somehow given as a special algebra, a special topology, and a special order. In computer science, we acknowledge that we have something like a state. We have a state transformation. That is, of course, very important for our computational processes. And later we realize that, of course, there is a third component, that is collaborating systems, in the small, in the large, in the meso style. And often we think that abstraction is the 4th dimension. Abstraction is a part of the 4th dimension. However, models is a 4th dimension of computer science, and for this reason we should talk a little bit more about models and show what is the benefit if we use models. Let me go back to a question Peter Denning was asking our community 28 years ago. Is computer science a science? And he had a negative answer. That is the same as the statement we had at Modelology 2003. Modeling in computer science is full of fundamentalistic wrong turns. That is also true for computer science, and for this reason the answer by Denning is correct. We have general problems. The foundations are mainly based on the Turing machine paradigm and on first-order predicate logics. Computation is considered as a state transformation. Principles of computing are still maybe on the way for development. We have also in programming a lot of such problems. We have the programming language model. We have, as a very bad issue, the approach syntax first. Semantics is based on syntax, and pragmatics may come later. I have the same situation also for databases. Think about the nightmare of null values, or the nightmare of object-oriented databases, or the really problematic decision to have SQL as a main programming language. And my claim is that modeling is still a lacuna in computer science. We are too much restricted to first-order constructors. We have a problematic understanding of what means meta. We have also mainly modeling as a painting technique. That is really a very problematic approach. And in this case, models have not the full powers they should have. My claim is models are works of art and thinking. They come almost everywhere, and in computer science in most diverse forms, sometimes very small, ingenious, sometimes medium-sized, sometimes very, very large. But the models are full of hidden secrets. For this reason we need theoretical fundamentals, and this was the work we did for the last years. A model can be as a notion defined. A model is, first of all, of course, require well-formed. That means digestible by everybody who would like to work with a model properly. But second, a model is adequate. Third, a model must be dependable so that we can rely on the model. And fourth, the model is an instrument. An instrument that something represents and that functions properly according to what we want to have. That means according to the concerns of a community of practice in a given application cases. That means in this case, if we have such a general notion of model, we should now explain what it means to be adequate, what it means to be dependable, and what it means that it functions properly. That means in this case we have to have a little theory behind, and my proposal is to use some kind of parametric specialization of this model notion in order to handle what is really a model in computer science. Adequacy and dependability are the two sides. However, adequacy is very nicely considered in computer science, mainly within the approach that has been developed by Stachowiak and Marr. With foreground models we have the truncation property, the pragmatic property, and in this case we should also think whether we can generalize this general notion, because it is still too specific. The mapping property is very general. We generalize it to the analogy property. The truncation property is far too strict. We use focus. And the pragmatical property is better to express as potentially useful. However, we should rely on a model. That means the model has to be dependable. And this is the background of the model, maybe even expressed with a background model. It should be first of all justified. Second, having a sufficient quality. And we have to explain and to specify what that means to be dependable. This is a matter of another talk, but I should tell you here that there is a dividing range. Somebody considers only models as to be adequate, and forget about that we should rely, should believe in the model. For this reason, we need also a reason why I should believe in the model. Let's look for a simple example. I take an extended entity relationship model. I have here maybe in mind to develop a website for hotel booking by let's say hotels that are registered in a member of a hotel chain, and we have something like we book a room, maybe we book a room type at a certain rate as a guest or as an agent. That means in this case this schema would be a model if we would like to know which data should be covered in this application. It is not a model if we should consider the pages of this website. The web pages should display specific actions. It is not a model if we would like to analyze what is maybe the booking rate somewhere in the world. And it is biased because if we say, okay, fine, our customers are only hotel chains. For this reason, a hotel belongs to a hotel chain. That means in this case, we have still a very specific interpretation of what is a model. For this reason, we say, okay, fine, utility and the potential usefulness is the crown jewel of model being. That means we should start with why the hell we want to use this and not another model. We could start with a scenario and situation, characterize the application landscape, characterize who will be the user, with which attention, which perspectives, which expectations. We should specify proper form, and we should support the model by a proper set of functions so that we can use this model in our situation and especially in our scenario so that it functions well. For this reason, we developed the study of models and modeling as well as model usage. We call it Modelology, or in German language Modellkunde, as an art and craft for models, for modeling activities, and for a systematic underpinning of modeling. And this is essentially a craftsmanship. We have to answer a number of questions: when something becomes a model, when something is never a model, what is a journey, at what time the model is useful, at what time the model should be somehow not considered anymore, what are the characteristics, what is expected from a model, to what extent the model can be trusted, which characteristics are excluded. That means in this case we have to have a general subdiscipline of computer science that handles modeling. So we have a number of research challenges. First of all, I observed that computer science is really very much based on languages. Languages can help, languages can hinder. We should also think about how we are constructing things in computer science. Computer science loves meta. Meta is a pretty problematic thing in computer science. We have to have a better explanation for it. We should use the whole semiotics and not only syntax. And additionally, we should consider the cognitive or contextual dimension and the meaning. And of course, we should have a better explanation what is abstraction. Let's turn to the first. Higher order constructors, as in the paper. Currently we are using, in a very primitive syntactic form, constructors, and mainly only applying these constructors once for defining some kind of construct. In reality, constructors are functions that have a correctness condition. That means we can only accept a construction if the correctness condition is fulfilled. It could be, for instance, an existence constraint, like I show in the next slide. A structural constructor can be defined as an algebraic expression for a composite with some composition components, like we do in first-order predicate logics, with a correctness criteria for the application of the constructor. that are enforced through rules for validation and correctness. That means a constructor comes with a semantics. And then in this case we need to have an understanding what it would mean that such a constructor is proper. Let's go look at an example. I take a simple example Jan Dietz was using for his explanation what is, let's say, the linear generalization specialization hierarchy. We know that as a genus, as a species, Panthera are well defined because of we know and we could observe those. We generalize them to a family of Felicidae, or to an order, or to a class of Mammalia. If we are asked now whether, let's say, a class is specialized to an order, then in this case it is a complete wrong direction because of we depend on the existence of this genus. That means the primitive understanding in computer science that generalization is the inverse of specialization is completely misleading. For this reason we need to handle it in a proper form. That means we have to have generalization and specialization together with correctness conditions. Let us look at a simple example. We have the classical model about covariance and contravariance. Let's say a type is specialized to another type T prime, and then we have operations for the type T. What are the operations for the type T prime? A long discussion has been issued of what should be, in this case, the result of a usage of an operation in T prime. There's a very simple solution that we have been already developing with Klaus-Dieter Schewe. This is operational specialization. That means in this case the operation O prime should behave, at least on the part of the objects we have in T, in the type T, in the same manner as it should be for those objects in T. This model is also continued with structural covariant specialization. Let's have a very simple example. You have students, we have dormitories. Students can have a dormitory contract. If the student is a guest student, then we have also guest houses and we have a guest house contract. This schema is almost not programmable in Java and other funny languages. It is, however, very simple if you look, let's say, in a little bit more sophisticated in the relationship model. You have students, you have dormitories, you have guest students and guest houses. You have a dormitory contract, and a guest house contract is only applicable to guest students and results also in a contract for a guest house. That is a simple representation. We can have also more sophisticated representations, and we have no covariant problems like in Java. Another problem in computer science is we handle meta. Meta only in one sense. We have a meta language. A meta language is nothing else as it shows in which case we can somehow form, specify, develop a certain utterance for stating something. And then we have rules or a grammar for this kind of formation, maybe even supported with a functionalization within the language. This is meta for languages. Meta for models, however, is completely different. Meta specifies the nature and essence. That means in this case we should say what is the way how we are modeling, and then we have two special dimensions additionally. That is, we have a foreground model, we have a background model. That means in this case we have to have a more flexible treatment for meta. This could be, let's say, done a little bit more systematically if we say, okay, fine, we have a language dimension. In the language dimension we have a certain form for meta, that is meta languages, meta languages, and so on. For models, however, we should look what is the nature and essence of a model, and then we have a meta model that expresses a nature and a sense of what means to be a model. What is a modelhood? The same can be done for the background. Let's say we have things, systems and sorts and instances we consider, then we have a background of these things considered. And then we have a meta background that is maybe our system of or tactical way of how to handle the background. Or we have a strategic background that are our beliefs in our thought collective or thought group. And then we have at least 3 dimensions to consider for meta treatment. We can do it systematically. We can say, okay, fine, we have a level 0 of abstraction, we have a level 1, that is the models, or that is somehow maybe the knowledge behind, or that is maybe the language behind we are using as a construct and the expression in the language. We have maybe in languages the craftsman's way, how to specify things properly. However, for models we have another way to handle it. That would be a modeling frame. And of course for the support again, another dimension. That means meta is not really a problem. Also we don't use it in a proper form in computer science. Another problem is, and this is a very, let's say, bad lesson we learn. Classically we only consider meso or macro level. We should also consider micro constructs. Look on a simple example taken from medicine. We consider in biology the protein level, the gene level, the cell level, the cell tissue level, the organ level, and maybe also somehow the body as itself. That means we have pretty differences in the granularity and also in the time frame we are using in this case. That means in this case we should use, or we should have a means for handling meso, macro and micro constructs in a sophisticated and well-founded way. In databases we start with so-called online transaction processing system and build on top of them the so-called online analysis process. And this is only a one-way construct. Why not to have macro, meso and micro together, and micro together? Another nightmare to mention. Syntax first, semantics on top of syntax is maybe a nice way for mathematical logics, but a very stupid way for handling applications. Applications come, of course, with a certain syntax, but together with semantics and together with pragmatics and also together with pragmatism. That means we should have a means to handle not only formal languages but also to understand that natural languages are far better examples how to develop a proper specification. Natural languages are constantly evolving and changing. Maybe we should look for a minimal compromise, and maybe we should go away from any kind of bureaucratic languages. And additionally, we should know that pragmatics is important, at least whenever we want to consider humans, and the meaning is the cognitive dimension that we should not forget. Another nightmare. Meaning is almost completely forgotten. We have in applications and in our world a conceptual meaning of anything what we express via terms or words. We have an associative meaning. We have a thematic meaning. We have a situation meaning. We have a utility meaning. That means in this case we have to consider different kinds. So let me come at least to the end. What we have is the abstract machine approach. We have already the macro and meso way to express applications or programs at least with the Turbo ASM. We need, however, a proper handling like we do in Modelology, how to handle models that express different perspectives on the world coherently, consistently together, and this would be model suites. That means this could be a very nice ASM paper in the future. In my understanding, modeling comes first, and then we should talk about programming. My hope is that we have maybe in 10-20 years computer science completely, entirely based for the first course in ASM approaches, on AMS approaches. That means I would like to have something like computer science curricula based on ASM. And of course, in this case, we could avoid or repair all these wrong turns computer science was taking, and that cause now a lot of problems in current technologies. Finally, I would like to thank Egon Berger for all what he did for our community, both for computer science and mathematics. Thanks also for the opportunity to give here a talk. I hope next time I can participate personally.